Hi, I'm Sally Kirkman, and I'm here with Christina Rodenbeck. We are friends and astrologers, and we're here to talk to you about the month ahead. If you want to find out more about us, my website's sallykirkman.com, and Christina is oxfordastrologer.com or oxfordastrology.com.
Oxford Astrologer.
Oh, okay, there we go. You've got it now. So how are we, Christina?
Well, we're struggling. We're struggling through this Scorpio season, which has been, hard work, I would say, with some highlights. I mean, I went to the Astrological conference, which was really fun around at Halloween. And I went, the next week I did ghost busting in France at my haunted house, which was also fun and kind of interesting, and I think hopefully successful. So yeah, but otherwise I feel like I've been working like a dog.
Yeah, same. I'm same. I mean, it feels like this month has been a grind. It's been hard. It's been hard work. It's just been too much on. And my month was extremely Scorpio. Oh my Lord. Not surprising really, being a Scorpio, and we've got this new eclipse season underway, which really started on that new moon, didn't it, on November the 4th, opposite Uranus. Uranus and eclipses, I think, often, they both bring the unexpected. You're on the roller coaster ride of life, ups and downs. So my month included a death on a birthday and a funeral, all very Scorpio themes. And I think that's quite classic, actually. I mean, Scorpio is this cycle, isn't it? It teaches us about life, death, rebirth, renewal, that whole cycle. I mean, as I was 8 months pregnant when my mother died, talking about having both of the wheel of life so profoundly there, a birth and a death. I think Scorpios are often seem to be more tapped into that in a way. I mean, it'd be interesting to know what other Scorpios think, but it seems to be very, very true for me. So yeah, it's been intense. It's been dramatic, it's been emotional, very real, really, very real.
And happy birthday.
Oh yeah, and I had a birthday. Thank you. Yeah, that was nice.
Good.
That was I'm early Scorpio, so it seems like ages ago now.
I know. I was just thinking, actually, that the conference I went to was at Halloween, but that seems like 100 years ago now, and it's not. It's just a few weeks.
Yeah.
So much has changed since then. Have you been following this COP26 at all?
Not a great deal. I nip on now and again. It seems to be that not a lot's going on, really. Or if it is going on, it's going to happen in a long time from now. That's sort of what I keep reading.
The expectations were low. Expectations were met, really.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was like a giant. I have to say, I found myself thinking very much about Neptune in Pisces during that I almost called it during that cosplay, during that conference, during the climate change conference, because I just thought of Alice in Wonderland with that pack of cards. When she says, "Oh, you're just a pack of cards." Because all the politicians were dressed up as politicians acting out politicians, and all the activists were dressed up as activists, acting out activists, and nothing happened. Sound and fury signifying nothing. So yeah, that was an interesting kind of nothing happening in the middle of this Scorpio month.
Yeah, I mean, just fascinating, I suppose, that it's taken place now, because I mean, the Taurus Scorpio axis is this axis very much linked in to climate change, really, isn't it? It's the Taurus food, fertilizing, producing, the earth we walk on, and then Scorpio regeneration, this recycling. I mean, it feels like, with this eclipse cycle starting right now and continuing for the next 2 years, and with Uranus, the activist planet of change in Taurus, this is all becoming very urgent. So it's kind of
don't you think that, I mean, it's becoming urgent. It's been urgent for ever. It's been urgent for decades now. And there's no sense of urgency from the people in charge. They're still waffling around. And I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens with these eclipses, because you're right, this is an axis that is involved with climate change. And Ceres, the asteroid, actually, this has just occurred to me, that Ceres, the asteroid of, you know, to do with fertility, agriculture, our relationship with the earth, will be actually hitting that eclipse point in January.
Okay.
So the eclipse we're talking about is the one I'm talking about is the one on the 19th of November, that first Taurus eclipse, which is the first in this series. But we have the last of the last series to deal with in this coming month as well, don't we? Which is in Sagittarius. And speaking of Sagittarius,
yes,
Sagittarians, yay!
Yay, Tigger. I often think of Tigger, just reminds me of Sagittarians, you know, that kind of larger than life, bounding around, having fun, hedonistic, causing slight chaos as well with their exuberant personalities sometimes. It's an interesting sign, isn't it? Because that's, you know, I think of that, and I think of the traveler. Obviously, it's the explorer, the free spirit of the zodiac. But there's so much more to Sagittarius, isn't there? Like there is with its ruling planet Jupiter. Jupiter doesn't symbolize just one thing. It has these, you know, these different strands. It's also religion, and we've got Pope Francis, who's our token Sagittarius Pope at the moment.
Yes, perfect.
It is perfect.
Pope is a Sagittarius, because it's a kind of global consciousness sign, isn't it? Although there's a dark side of Sagittarius. Steve Bannon has just been arrested in the States, I think, and Steve Bannon, of course, was the person who orchestrated the sort of dark propaganda campaign which got Donald Trump elected to office. And he's finally being indicted. I think it's about the insurrection, but he has most of his planets, I think, are in Scorpio, but he has a sun in Sagittarius. He crumples around in the classic Sagittarian way. I mean, Sagittarians are noted for their kind of casual dress sense.
Jeans and boots and a t-shirt, a sweatshirt. That's the classic look, isn't it, really?
And I think it's funny that he's going down, and Brittany, another Sagittarius, she's on her way out, you know, free. Brittany is free at last. And I think that's kind of Jupiter, you know, a Jupiter ruled sign, you know, has these extremes.
And it's also part of the eclipses, isn't it, as well? We're at the tail end now of the Gemini Sagittarius eclipse cycle, which started in the middle of last year, June 2020, and completes in December 2021. And this is often what happens on these eclipses. Some people rise to prominence, other people kind of spiral down, end up in trouble, or, you know, kind of wiped out sometimes with eclipses. It's the real highs and lows, isn't it? So it's kind of classic astrology that you have one in handcuffs and the other, yay, Britney Spears is free.
Well, and the free Britney kind of momentum behind Britney getting out of this, I want to call it the coercive control, but that's not right, out of this ridiculous legal situation. You know, it has been during these eclipses in Gemini Sagittarius that it's gained more and more momentum. And finally, at the end of that, we see her freed from this, from her, it's conservatorship, isn't it? Freed from the conservatorship. The other Sagittarian who's kind of in the news is Emmanuel Macron. He's always in the news. The president of France, who has, I noticed that he's changed the color of the flag slightly. They've adjusted the blue.
What's that all about? Do we know why?
Mais c'est plus chic. I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it looks better. It's prettier. I don't know. This is France we're talking about.
But it needs to be the right shade of blue.
Shade of blue is a little bit off.
Not aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Well, I suppose it seems a very French presidential thing to do.
He's having difficulties. I mean, he's at 29 degrees Sagittarius, his sun, which is always, you know, when you have a placement at 29 degrees, that's interesting. You know, any planet there, your sun there means, you know, he has the Sagittarian thing of like talking a lot. He's, you know, people say that he just, you know, his speech is gone. He talks too much. He talks a lot. He's having difficulty because the far right is making such a huge inroads in France at the moment, and they've got an election coming up and whatever.
Right.
So no, that's where he is sort of, and that's a kind of liminal. It's an interesting place for the sun of a president because it's kind of a liminal space, the 29th degree.
Mm.
So it's tipping over into Capricorn.
Mm. Mm.
So in fact, he spent most of his life with his with the first 30 years of his life with the progressive sun actually in Capricorn.
Yeah, he has.
And of course, there he is, president, power, blah, blah, blah. Very young president.
No, it fits beautifully. So, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting sign, Sagittarius. And there is also, when you were talking a little bit, because we've got the sun goes into Sagittarius on the 22nd, I think, isn't it? 22nd of November. And then Mercury follows swiftly behind this time on the 24th. So they're kind of hand in hand. And if you think of Mercury in Sagittarius, Mercury doesn't like to be in Sagittarius because there is this, it's just everything out there, isn't there? There's this, you can put over on the front or too much. It's kind of, there's this exuberance, over enthusiastic, overconfidence, It can turn into arrogance, can't it? Pompousness almost when it's too much. And that is again this flip side, I suppose, of Sagittarius.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of some of the people we've just mentioned, I would say the thing about Bannon and Macron that they share, one of the things they share, the characteristics they share is arrogance. They're constantly being called arrogant by the press. Okay, so shall we talk about the month ahead then? What's coming up from it's the Sagittarius season is 22nd of November this year to 22nd of December. Is that right? Is that when it changes?
I think it's the 21st of December, traditionally the solstice. I don't know exactly when the sun moves into Capricorn, but yeah, it's and Sagittarius, again, one of the mutable signs. So it kind of closes a season, doesn't it? There's this sort of ending about it, ready for the new beginning in a way on the solstice, when the sun enters Capricorn. So I think, we've got the sun, Mercury, as I said, joins the sun. So, and they make a conjunction at the end of November I think it's the 29th. On the 29th. So they're going in together. So this does create this sort of quickness to Sagittarius season. And I noticed that Mars will also join them sort of mid-December. So there's this, when you get the sun, Mercury, and Mars together, there's this speed, things speed up. You can get things done, actually. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to do in a way. So it's a quick start to Sagittarius season. So those Sagittarians are probably going to be very lively out there, have a lot to say during the last week of November. I think it's going to be busy.
Well, yeah, it's important to remember that Mars is still in Scorpio, though, until December 13th. Yeah. So there's still a lot of Scorpio energy because that's Scorpio's ruler. And, it's powerful in Scorpio. And Mars is like, it's making, it makes a interesting sextile with Pluto, the other ruler of Scorpio, on the 6th of December. So there's still this powerful. And one of the things about Mars in Scorpio that I think is great is this regenerative energy. You talk about how Mars is about recycling. It's true. It's about regeneration. And with Mars there, that particular hot, fiery energy, that is real regeneration. It's also cutting out the crap. That's still an ongoing theme. As you say, Mercury and the sun are charging forward in Sagittarius. I think it's very social. The other thing said about Sagittarians is that it's a social sign. It's a very, it's a sign of hospitality. And so it's nice that that we have this season of feasting, especially, in the States, it's Thanksgiving, but in other parts of the world as well, we have a season of feasting leading up to Christmas, the Great Feast, which is a Sagittarian time of year. There's no one more Sagittarian than Santa Claus, and of course he's busy telling his little elves what to do and feeding the reindeer their last little whatevers. And it's everything's, we're getting ready for that great feast.
Yeah, it's very, it's I think, well, I mean, Leo has it as well. Maybe Aries not so much, but Leo and Sagittarius, they are incredibly at their best generous star signs, aren't there? There's this charitable nature. They want to give. They want to make other people happy. They want to treat people, and they want to bring the best of things to other people.
Yeah.
You know, and it is, and fire is, again, I think we've been lacking fire a little bit we've had these periods in the year when there's been no planets in fire, you know, and fire is joy. It's playful, you know, it's spontaneous, it's that love of life. So I think it's really good news that we're moving into Sagittarius season, particularly probably for the fire signs, you know, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Make the most of this, you know, play, be convivial, get together, do things you love.
And I think it's great for everybody because, as you say, we haven't had enough fire this year. And actually Mars will then go into Sagittarius whenever it is the 13th, and then it'll stay there right through Christmas. So that's really nice, this hospitable, generous, fun-loving party sign. You know, I mean, there's the dark side, as we discussed, but you know, this outgoing, this idea that, you know, life is there to be grabbed. That's a Sagittarian idea. That's why it's associated with travel and exploration and looking into things and curiosity. I think for, you know, obviously when the sun goes into Sagittarius and Mercury and eventually Mars, this is important for Geminis as well, because it's your partnership sign, you know, that gives the whole thing a big push of energy. And actually thinking about it for Pisces, you know, this is across the top of your chart.
Yeah, it's career vocation for Pisces.
It's
kind of getting yourself seen and noticed, isn't it? It's becoming an influencer, Christina.
Yeah, if only, except it's going to be Mars, you know, and Mars sometimes across the top of your chart can be good or bad. It can be one, depends on other things in the chart, but it can mean that you have a big boost, or you have a lot to do.
Or you can end up in some kind of competitive situation where you're getting quite a lot of aggro. Wherever Mars goes, there's always the potential for aggro, isn't there?
There always is. Or someone who's bullying you, pushing you around. I mean, I have had quite a lot of, you know, when it goes through your 7th, which is, you know, it's still there for Taurus. You know, when it's opposite your sun sign, essentially. So that'll be at the moment for Taurus, and then it'll be for Gemini later. It can mean that someone is actually really picking a fight with you, you know. And I've had quite a few clients with that literally recently, or who, you know, that you end up in a court case, you know. So there is a downside. The upside is it's about passion. So maybe just someone's passionately in love with you.
That's the best way it can turn out, isn't it, really? Or you've got someone who's your cheerleader, cheering you on. Come on, we can do this. You don't have to give up. Keep going.
So where are we? You know, we're also coming up to the next eclipse, aren't we?
We are. It's the final eclipse of the Gemini Sagittarius cycle, which is in a solar eclipse in Sagittarius on December the 4th. So it's an ending as well as a beginning, this eclipse. It's the end of a cycle. Also, eclipses have that theme of a door closing for a new door to open. I kind of, you know, I liked it as an eclipse. I mean, considering this month when we had the new moon opposite Uranus and this powerful lunar eclipse in Scorpio Taurus, which has been really sort of intense and dramatic, it's more of a sense of, I don't know, a leap for freedom, or, you know, having faith with this eclipse. It's a sort of powerful end to the cycle in a way. Be interesting to see what happens around it for the Sagittarians actually as well.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think back to the Ben and Brittany opposite is happening. She's free. He's being banged up, possibly. Anyway, he's been indicted. And you were saying a leap for freedom. You know, I think it is partly about freedom or not freedom, and that's a classic astrological polarity, isn't it? Is that you say, you know, sometimes when you look at a chart, you say, well, you know, this could go either you're going to be free or you're going to go to jail, you know. And that's literally, and that so, and also this shows, I think, the way that eclipses can work in advance. We can see the eclipse coming. So it's not just like what happens on that day. It flavors the time around it, especially if it's hitting your chart, if that's an important point in your chart.
Yeah, it's, and this one's at 12 Sagittarius, actually.
Yeah. So if you have anything 12, especially in the mutable signs, that's Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, Virgo,
yeah,
and it's definitely going to be having some resonating in your chart in some way.
And also I think what's important with this final eclipse is that the the nodes are always, the karmic nodes are pulled into the eclipse cycle, and they only change star sign actually in mid-January. I think the true node moves on. So it's not just about what's happening on December the 4th. There's this sort of ripple effect. And I think that's often the case with eclipses. You don't see sometimes what's happened because the shadow falls, but it's only a while afterwards that you realize what's going on, and then you need to try and either take advantage or deal with it. There's always this hidden flavor to eclipses, and it's not great either, I think, to launch something on an eclipse date. I would never do that. Wait and see what happens, because it's a time often when the situation can shift.
And also, I mean, there's the question, when we talk about time, we can become very linear about time, that things happen in a straight line. And actually, eclipses, maybe time doesn't work like that. Eclipses have a ripple effect before the eclipse and after the eclipse, which is a really, which makes you think about, is time a straight line? I certainly don't think so. Or is time a spiral?
Yeah.
Or is it two spirals? Is it like a kind of helix? How does it work? So that ripple effect, or is it all happening all at once?
We're getting very cosmic now.
Well, we're getting into Sagittarius season, and this is the sign of big ideas, right?
Yeah,
is it happening all at once? But what we can say as astrologers is that effect of the eclipse, the ripple effect, is rippling that forwards and rippling backwards, and who knows, maybe it's rippling sideways as well. So back to the Brittany thing, this is already that eclipse that we're talking about for her.
Yeah, interesting. So it's an important eclipse to notice. I mean, you probably, whatever sign you are, whatever star sign, you should already be aware of what this is about, because this is the end of the eclipse cycle. It started in the middle of last year. So for Virgo in particular, actually for Virgo and Gemini, I would say, because Mercury is pulled into it. It sits next to the sun and moon. For Virgo, this is it's about your home. It's about family. It's past. It's about that, the cycle that leads from the past to the future. That's where these changes are. That's where these shifts are. And it can be a really important eclipse cycle. You move home, or you lose someone dear to you, or you change career path, or you see your future differently. It's a really quite pivotal. And then for Gemini as well, this is, it's been another important eclipse cycle because it's first house, seventh house. It's about you, how you see yourself. It's about your relationships. And sometimes your attitude changes, your identity changes in some way, and that shifts your relationships, or your partner changes and that shifts how you see yourself, how you see the relationship. So, I mean, these sort of, whatever the theme's been, whatever the areas of life have been triggered, you should already be aware of it. And this kind of solar eclipse could be some definitive form of, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm saying, this is where I'm moving now, leading you into the new year, which is an ideal time to be doing that.
I mean, the other people that it's important for are, well, actually it affects everyone. These eclipses do, more or less. But for fire signs, for Aries, this is maybe that you're finishing some kind of course, you're finishing some course of study that you started 18 months ago, you're looking at a new direction that you're interested in. And also, for Leos, maybe you had an affair that lasted those 18 months. I hope so. That would be marvelous. Or maybe you found some new thing that gave you pleasure, or something. It was something to do with your creativity, probably, and self-expression. Or it could be kids, actually, for Leos. It might have been I'm just thinking, actually, in a really simple way that, you know, my partner is a Leo, double Leo with Leo rising, and our daughter has you know, she's left home, she's gone to university, and that's obviously an eclipse thing, but it's been over this period, this 18-month period, and it's definitive now.
Yeah.
So it's something like that, you know, somewhere in your life there is a life shift. You know, I'm also thinking, you know, the idea of an area of interest opening up or closing is, of course, it's important, you know, for Aries, but it may have been important maybe for Libra too. An area of interest or something that you've been intellectually or focusing on, or a teaching thing, maybe finishing, or you may now have made that shift, so now you know this is what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, that fits for Libra, I know. Well, it's kind of like a new beginning, actually.
Yeah,
it's a new future chapter.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of kind of struggle and not giving up, because sometimes eclipses, you know, they want you to dig deep. Not giving up. Her new beginning is coming, opening up a new course. So yeah,
your daughter is now definitely doing her course, right? And she's had over the last 18 months, it's been off and on. Is it going to happen? Is she going to get in? Whatever. Now she's definitely in.
Yeah, and there's been a switch of courses along the way. She got offered one, not the one she wanted, then the one she wanted came. So, you know, she's been very involved in that. So for Libra and Aries, I imagine, because it is, you know, this is the educational axis. It's the axis of learning and knowledge in a way, isn't it? For both those star signs, that may have been the sort of theme that's been going on.
And the switcheroo is now stopped, should be fairly settled. And the switcheroo now is moving on to this Taurus and Scorpio stuff in our lives.
Yeah.
And I, you know, one of the things about eclipses is I kind of like them, because what they do is they make things evolve more quickly. You know, they make that part of your life evolve more quickly so that you move forward and change happens, you know. So if you're stuck in somewhere area, you know, when the eclipses come, it unsticks things.
Yeah, I think it a lot depends how much you like change and how much you don't. And, you know, it's kind of.
Yeah, I am a mutable person. You know.
Well, I'm not. I'm fixed.
That's why we have to. That's why this conversation is good, isn't it? You've got the fixed person and the mutable person.
Yeah, but having said that, you know, what's been happening this past month with real difficult stuff, and maybe this is speaking as a Scorpio, you know, there's something about difficult stuff, the dark side of life, that really makes me feel like I'm living, if that makes sense, because it's intensity. It's like, right, we're getting down to the nitty gritty of life here. How am I going to respond to this? Yeah, and it's emotional, and yeah, there's pain, but it's kind of, that's part of dealing with the dark side of life, brings intensity. And it's sometimes during those periods that we learn the most. So again, with eclipses, this is, you know, it's not easy stuff by any means often, but boy, you know, we're really engaging with life, all of it, life, light and dark, the whole cycle, the whole wheel.
Yeah, you know, I meant to mention this at the beginning, but what I've been doing, the other thing I've been doing in Scorpio season is I have been watching Breaking Bad. Have you watched that?
Not yet, no, on my list.
Yeah, put it on your list, but maybe, you know, prepare yourself. It's very it's a Scorpio experience. It's Faustian, you know, it's about a man who makes a pact with the devil essentially and descends into, you know, creates a hell. And it's very, very good. It's very well acted. You know, it's all in the title, Breaking Bad. But it made me, when you were saying that you really live when you are experiencing the darkness, that's such a Scorpio thing to say.
No, I'm aware of that.
But it's true. I mean, that's why there's so much drama that is based on difficulty. You know, if you don't have difficulty, you don't have a play, you know. If you don't have obstacles, you don't have a story. we just watched Hamlet last night as well. My other daughter's doing Hamlet for school. That's, pretty much Breaking Bad. Things go wrong. They go from bad to worse.
Yeah.
Through a series of bad choices. But there's the drama, and that's why drama's cathartic for the rest of us, isn't it?
Yeah, and Shakespeare knew all about that, didn't he? I mean, really, it's, tragic comedies, the tragic side of life, the comedic side of life, both.
Okay, we've kind of veered. Where are we now?
Well, we've got this really powerful eclipse coming up, but I kind of wonder whether we need to, because also, immediately I'm thinking of the Venus, what Venus is doing. I think we need to talk about Venus, don't you? And then we've got the full moon as well. But such an important time for Venus, planet of love, money, moved into Capricorn on November the 5th and won't leave Capricorn until March 2023, which already tells us that Venus is slowing down and will be turning retrograde during this month, right at the end of it. She turns retrograde on the 19th, and she does it conjunct Pluto. So we're back in, almost back in Scorpio territory a little bit, intense, obsessive, my Lord. Capricorns, if you're involved in some kind of affair or passion, this is going to be super intense.
It's also the two planets that are to do with money. In this kind of big companies, big corporations.
Yeah.
So that's interesting as well. I mean, Pluto is big money. It's the plutocrats, plutocracy, wealth. It's great wealth from underground. And Venus is just cash money more. It's like not just how to spend it, but it's about but they're both about wealth. And here they are making this conjunction, and she retreats after she gets to Pluto and then she turns backwards. I think that's very symbolic of, well, we'll see what it's symbolic of, but there's something happening there. If you have anything around 25 degrees of Capricorn, and that's Capricorns in particular, or Cancer, for example, then this is a really, really interesting retrograde, and not necessarily a bad one at all, by the way, especially for Capricorns. I mean, I know we probably mentioned Jeff Bezos on this before, but, I can't help thinking of him and his vast quantities of wealth. A Capricorn who's done very well, thank you very much, with the transit of Pluto through this sign. But I think it's also interesting that this Venus retrograde goes back over all of those degrees that over the last decade have had this Pluto transit. Then they had the Saturn transit. So there's been a lot of harshness in these Capricorn. Wherever it falls in your chart, you may have struggled, and this may have been exaggerated actually when Jupiter went through there. This is the place where, this is the stellium in Capricorn was the beginning of this pandemic, don't forget. And now Venus is coming along and she's going over this several times. She's not just skipping past like she normally does in 3 weeks, but hello, bye, la la la. She's actually taking the time to go and do her Venusian thing, which is partly, she is the peacemaker, or the harmonizer. So there's some kind of reharmonizing that may need to happen in that Capricorn part of the sky. And for example, like for Cancers, that would be a partnership thing, or for Aries, that would be to do with your public face. It'll be interesting to see if Jeff Bezos has a kind of rebranding, because that would be a classic thing to do, would be to be thinking about the rebranding while Venus is retrograde, then launch the new brand when Venus goes direct.
Yeah, so really powerful actually for the cardinal signs, isn't it? I mean, you've mentioned Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, Libra as well. It's going to be about home, home and family actually, and probably quite well. I mean, I'm thinking of Libras who I know exactly what that's going to be about. It's moving into Christmas without a member of their family. How that Venus and Pluto, that brings real intensity to it. I think also what's interesting for me, with the Venus retrograde phase, because I often feel, it's when she moves, I think, from evening star to morning star, isn't it? So there's always this, the planet is hidden from view, and Venus has been so bright actually in the night sky recently, really beautiful. So again, the theme is Venus goes underground. You know, she's diving into Pluto's realm. She's going down there. What's she going to come out with? You know, there's hidden riches down there. There's sort of learning. There's she comes out renewed, refreshed. She comes out actually when Venus turns direct, January the 29th, 2022. You know, she comes out more as kind of warrior woman, I always think. She goes in quite timid, but then gathers strength, gathers these riches, gathers these things she needs, and emerges. So, you know, take that into where you're heading during the Venus retrograde phase. What do you need to find out? What are you wanting to go down deep and work on or look at or discover? Quite an interesting retrograde phase, actually.
I think it's a really interesting one. I think it's super important. I mean, you know, she's considered a planet of war in some cultures.
Yes,
right?
she is. Yeah.
In Central America and Mongolia, this is a planet of war. I don't think it's a she particularly either. So, you know, we get very fixated on these kind of, oh, Venus, you know, blah, blah, blah. Isn't it lovely? You know, actually, sex and death, you know, do go hand in hand. So yes, I mean, I think that the journey underground is really interesting. You know, this is part of so many cultural traditions, the idea that Venus goes underground. And also that this, while she's underground, there's a kind of harshness in the air because the sweetness is gone. You know, she's not being sweet.
Yeah, I think for Aquarius, it's going to be quite interesting because it's the most hidden sector of Aquarius horoscope. So, you know, sometimes this is the place where you find a secret enemy or someone working against you. So, you know, to be aware of that, what's going on behind the scenes for Aquarius, particularly with Venus there, you know, it's who's the person who you may not be able to trust or you may not know what they're doing. So I think that's quite interesting for Aquarius.
You know, yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? And for Sagittarius, of course, this is definitely could well be about money. You know, are you going to find that you actually have some money that you didn't know about, which would be really cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, go look in that attic. That's the kind of, you know, for Sagittarius and possibly Gemini as well. It's kind of, you know, it's the hidden wealth or the hidden treasures, literally, could come tumbling out during this period.
I find it quite interesting for Gemini as well, because it's sort of an 8th house thing, isn't it? So that's and it actually fits the 8th house very well. So this is you know, house again, it's a money thing, but it's actually also about digging deep and seeking, you know, looking into your own psyche. Am I looking at I like it? Yeah, I am, aren't I? I'm turning my head upside down.
No, that's right. And I think also, you know, while you were saying that, it's I mean, the other important planetary event on the 19th, the day that Venus turns retrograde, is a full moon in Gemini.
Yeah.
So this is, you know, suddenly this is quite, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the full moon brings clarity. It's when, you know, the light that is at its fullest, and often you see things or intuit things. And then Venus, you know, there's a shade or a shadow again with Venus turning retrograde. There may be a moment of clarity, and then you decide to back off or you decide to retreat yourself. It may be that, you know, you need to be Venus and you need to retreat, not get involved, or, you know, just wait, play a kind of waiting game. So it's interesting astrology, the two events linked together.
Well, because of the way the retrograde works, you know, she's just gone beyond Pluto and then she goes back over Pluto immediately. So she's actually kind of stationing pretty much on Pluto for days.
Yeah.
And that's about going deep psychologically, especially, like I said, for Gemini. I think that's really a key concept. And also for Libra, you know, this is about the family, you know, and maybe family secrets coming out. And that's the other thing that could happen for the Gemini and the Libra and the Aquarius, especially. This, like, some kind of secret stuff is revealed. And it may be revealed in a way that's okay because it's Venus, you know. It may not sort of pop out at you like it's a horrible skeleton out. It may sort of sidle out, and something is, it's like the sand kind of washing away from something from the treasure box. Yeah, so I'm quite excited about this Venus retrograde. As usual, I find these Venusian things, and of course it means that Venus is currently out of bounds, which I have posted on Instagram that what out of bounds means.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, ooh, I always look at it and go, oh, it's an ooh. But planet out of bounds. Yeah. There's you're finding it quite interesting, aren't you, learning about these out of bounds planets? I mean, I don't use them at all in astrology.
I like declinations. I mean, I think that it adds another dimension to astrology, because we can tend to be like two-dimensional on the page. And when you start thinking about declinations, which is how far the planets are up or down as well, then you have another dimension going on. And I think that's very interesting. And you just have to look at who's got what out of bounds, and you suddenly think, oh, okay, I get it. This is something that is like actually not playing by the rules, a planet that doesn't play by the rules.
Yeah, I did notice that I've got Mars out of bounds. Does that mean I'm very unruly?
Really, you're very independent.
Yeah, I'm a rebel. Yeah. I thought, oh well, probably that makes sense. Yeah, my Mars.
I have a moon out of bounds.
Oh, so. Do you? Oh, Christina, that's interesting. I wouldn't have put you as a moon out of bounds. Aren't you meant to be sort of hedonistic and sort of? You don't need to go into how that plays out. We don't need to share that with everyone if you don't want to.
I'll just share the placement. Moon out of bounds. Jupiter.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving swiftly on.
I think I'm not quite sure how we're doing on time.
Well, I think that we need to kind of wind up. We've got this. Have we got one more lunation to look at?
Well, we've got the full moon, haven't we, on December the 19th, which is in Gemini, as mentioned. I think what's interesting about this full moon in particular is that it is sextile, ruled by Jupiter, and it's sextile to Jupiter in Aquarius. And of course, Jupiter's going to be leaving Aquarius at the end of December. So it is this, I think it's quite nice in a way. Jupiter's going out in style, making a lovely aspect to the full moon, Jupiter celebration, freedom, the good things in life. So I think it's important wherever Jupiter's been in your chart, how are you going to kind of mark it or honor it in some way? For Aquarius, maybe that's particularly important. Maybe it's a big celebration to celebrate what's been going on while Jupiter's been in your star sign. Big party, throw a party on the full moon or something like that.
Yeah, you often do get a gift, with the Jupiter departure, the final farewell. There's a little present left on the doorstep, and I would think that it might be very true for Aquarians.
Yeah.
Actually, also Capricorns, literally maybe cash money.
Yes. Again.
Well,
we're just Bezos. I know that's not the case for every Capricorn out there, but some have done well.
But it's nice, isn't it, that actually this Jupiter makes these very nice final gestures as it's leaving. On the 20th, it makes that, sextiles the full moon, at sextile the sun, and actually trines. Is it trining Mercury? No, that's something
sextile Mercury as well, but that's earlier on the 11th. But because
it makes nice aspects before leaving. Yeah. And so the other important thing I think that we need to mention really is that this is the last gasp of this Jupiter in Aquarius, which is particularly lucky for Aquarius, but also for Gemini and Libra. This is a really it's a good transit. You should celebrate it, use it, for for Gemini. This may well have been some, I can think of Gemini's going to a new school, new university who've had a wonderful time. Things have opened up for you intellectually. Well, this would be the time to get the prize or to to, as you say, celebrate. And Libra, maybe you've been having a torrid affair. I don't know. I hope so. But also, again, there's a sort of educational aspect to that for Libra.
I kind of, I don't go to a show or go to the theatre as well or something, go to something you've always wanted to see. Blimey, I mean, live arts is fantastic. I hated not having live arts. So, I mean, that could be a celebration in itself. But yeah, definite that is really a feel. I mean, it's whatever Jupiter's been boosting in your life. If a Taurus in your career sector. So, that might be feeling really pleased and, about what's been happening all this time Jupiter's been in Aquarius. You might be free. You might be free from a job you hated or, moving into a new chapter. So, yeah, so it kind of feels quite nice, doesn't it? That full moon. It's important for that.
I mean, there is one other thing to mention, which is that square still between Saturn. The one unpleasant thing to mention, which is the square still ongoing between Saturn and Uranus, which is close enough all month, really, isn't it?
Yes, it's exact again, really on the Christmas Eve, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's all coming up. So there is tension between Taurus and Saturn and Aquarius, between Saturn and Uranus, between freedom and restriction. And again, it's about, maybe the Taurians in our lives are wanting to break free, but they're somehow not able to yet. Well, you will be, I think next year looks better for this.
And it depends, I think, also where Uranus falls in, a Taurus chart as well.
I'm thinking about a couple of Taurians. I'm thinking about my brother, actually, who's been wanting to leave the country in which he lives, but has been unable to for the whole time of this Saturn in Aquarius thing. And I think he'll be able to go next year. He's doing it in April. But right now it's like it's a sense of being anchored by something you don't want to be anchored by.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a tough square. I mean, it's been and it isn't going away completely in 2022. Even it's not exact, but they're still in square aspect a lot of the year. So, and I think this is about society. It's about what's going on in society, the restrictions, the clashes with people who want freedom. I mean, that's going to continue. And we've seen a lot of the European countries are doing lockdown light and stuff, which, I mean, I think it's just a nice way of trying to put lockdown, isn't it? Lockdown light. Well, it's not as draconian as it was. But I
haven't been paying any attention.
Let's not go there. Let's end on a Jupiter note of let's all have a lovely time on the run up to the end of the year and party and be hedonistic and have some fun.
Yeah.
And work hard until you can. She says, talking to herself, really, but maybe that resonates for other people too. While Mars is in Scorpio, I've got my head down and I'm working. It's interesting, the timing on that. I want to take a holiday after Mars moves into Sag.
Well, that's not till the 13th. So you're going to have to get everything done before the 13th. Quite an ask, isn't it? I mean, there's so much to do. Oh, Sally.
Oh, yes, Christina.
Oh, Sally, we have to mention the important thing, which is that we're going to do a special podcast looking at 2022, the year ahead. And when are we putting that out?
I think it's going to be a Christmas gift for everybody.
Is it? Oh my goodness. Okay. I better start working on that now.
It's a Christmas gift. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be in this podcast format. So we're going to be chatting about the big themes of the year ahead.
Yeah. And we'll try and be pithy. I mean, we're not going to kind of ramble too much, right?
We'll try and be pithy. Can we do that, Christina?
We can. We'll have a list of things that we're going to definitely talk about.
Yeah.
And the most important themes of 2022 and how that should affect each, the different signs, what the important aspects are and what to think about. So you can listen to it in chunks if you need to.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. So I think that's it for this month, isn't it? It's been great talking with you, Christina, and I hope that was interesting for everybody. And we'll see you next month. Take care.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.